You already know her face. The dark painted eyes, the flawless skin, the most seductive woman who ever lived. A beauty so dangerous she brought Rome to its knees. There's only one problem. It's a lie. The real Cleopatra looked nothing like the legend. And the truth about how she conquered the most powerful men in history is far more dangerous than beauty. For 2,000 years, we've imagined Cleopatra as a goddess of beauty. Renaissance painters wrapped her in silk and pearls. Hollywood crowned her the ultimate seductress, draped in gold. An irresistible face that toppled an empire. But here is what no one tells you. Not a single one of those images was made by anyone who ever saw her. They were painted hundreds, sometimes 1,000, years after she was already dust. Every artist simply imagined the most beautiful woman they could and wrote her name beneath it. Each new century redrew her to match its own idea of desire. The fantasy grew. The woman disappeared. We never inherited Cleopatra's face. We inherited a fantasy. So what did she actually look like? There is one source that cannot flatter and cannot lie. Coins, struck while she was alive, approved by Cleopatra herself, carried across her kingdom and into the hands of Rome. And the face pressed into that silver is not the face of the legend. A sharp, hooked nose, a jutting chin, a hard, severe profile, thin lips set in a straight, unsmiling line. This was not a soft, delicate beauty. This was a ruler who wanted one thing from her image, not to be desired, but to be feared. And remember, she chose this face. A queen controls what her coins look like. She could have ordered herself softened, prettied, made gentle. Instead, she had herself carved sharp, strong, almost masculine. She wanted to look like a king. Which leaves us with a question that shouldn't have an answer. If she was not a great beauty, how did she seduce Julius Caesar, the most powerful man on earth? And how did she capture Mark Antony so completely that he would throw away Rome itself and die in her arms? The answer is the part history worked hardest to bury. Egypt, 48 BC. Cleopatra is 21 years old and losing a civil war for her own throne. Her own brother has driven her out of the palace. Julius Caesar arrives in Alexandria, master of the Roman world. She cannot reach him. Her enemies hold the city. So she has herself smuggled past the guards, rolled inside a sack of bed linen, and delivered in secret to Caesar's private rooms. When it is unwrapped, the young queen rises in front of the most powerful man alive. It was not beauty that stopped Caesar. It was the audacity, the nerve, the sheer theater of it. Here was a mind that worked like his own, that gambled like his own. Within months, she was his lover, and Queen of Egypt once more. Within a year, she had given Caesar something no Roman wife had, a son. She named him Caesarion, Little Caesar. She had not just survived. She had tied her bloodline to the master of Rome. Because Cleopatra's true weapon was never her face. It was her mind. The historian Plutarch who spoke to men whose families had met her, said she could pass from one language to another like an instrument of many strings. Ethiopians, Hebrews, Arabs, Syrians, Medes, Parthians. She could answer many of them herself, in their own tongue, where the kings before her had always leaned on interpreters. She was the first ruler of her entire Greek dynasty to even learn the language of the Egyptians she ruled. And Plutarch is just as blunt about her looks. Her beauty, he wrote, was not the kind that leaves you speechless. It was her presence, her voice, her wit, the sheer force of her conversation that was impossible to escape. She did not dazzle these men. She outthought them. And no one fell harder than Mark Antony. When he summoned her to answer for her loyalty, she did not arrive as a nervous subject. She turned the meeting into a performance. She came to him on a golden barge with purple sails and silver oars, dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, the air so heavy with perfume they say the riverbanks filled with people just to breathe it. Antony had called her to judge her. Instead, he was the one being judged, and he never recovered. He followed her to Alexandria. He spent her treasure, fought her wars, and fathered 3 children with her. Slowly, willingly, he traded the Roman world for her. This was not a man bewitched by a pretty face. This was a man outmaneuvered by a queen. And she had everything to play with. Cleopatra ruled the richest kingdom in the Mediterranean. Egypt was the breadbasket of the ancient world, its grain a prize Rome hungered for. She ran a vast economy, a navy, a priesthood. She inherited a treasury drowning in debt and dragged it back to life. Then she went further than any of them dared. In a single ceremony in Alexandria, she divided Roman lands among her children and crowned her son Caesarion, the true heir of Julius Caesar. It was breathtaking ambition. A queen of Egypt redrawing the map of Rome's empire. She was not a decoration on a throne. She was a head of state, playing the deadliest game of power on earth. And for 20 years, she was winning. But one man needed the world to believe something else. Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir and Cleopatra's final enemy. To drag Rome into war against one of its own, Mark Antony, he could never admit the truth, that a Roman general had been outmatched by a brilliant foreign queen. So Octavian built a different Cleopatra, not a strategist, a temptress, not a head of state, a scheming, drunken seductress of the Nile who ruled with her body, not her mind, and bewitched a good Roman away from his duty. His poets sang it. Rome repeated it. The most capable ruler of her age was rewritten as a warning about a dangerous woman. It was propaganda. And it didn't last a year or a generation. It lasted 2,000 years. In the end, the propaganda arrived with an army. At Actium, in 31 BC, the fleets met off the coast of Greece. By the time the smoke cleared, Octavian had broken them. Antony, told that Cleopatra was already dead, fell on his own sword and died learning it was a lie. And Cleopatra, rather than be dragged through Rome as a trophy in Octavian's parade, chose her own death, on her own terms, inside her own palace. Exactly how she died is its own mystery, and not the simple snakebite you were taught. But that is a story for another day. The last pharaoh of Egypt was gone, and the man who destroyed her was left, alone, to write the story of who she had been. This is the real Cleopatra. The most powerful woman of the ancient world did not win with beauty. She won with intelligence, with language, with strategy and nerve, on a stage built entirely by men who wanted her erased. And when she finally fell, those men took the cruelest revenge they could. They buried her genius and handed us only a beautiful face. Everything you think you know about her was written by the man who needed her to be a myth. Cleopatra was never who you think, and neither were her children. Caesarion, the boy who was the blood of Caesar, and the others Rome would drag through its streets in chains to show the world what happens to a queen who dares to win. What Octavian did to them is the part of the story almost no one tells. That story is next. Subscribe.